Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, analysis of U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions' appearance today before the Senate Intelligence Committee. Also tonight, a new report shows Arizona again ranked near the bottom in terms of children's well-being. And we'll hear from longtime public interest attorney Tim Hogan, who's stepping down at the end of the year. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. The only two companies offering health insurance in Arizona through the Affordable Care Act's Marketplace plan will apparently continue to offer insurance through next year. Blue Cross Blue Shield and Centene Corps' Ambetter by HealthNet both filed paperwork with the State Department of Insurance to continue offering personal insurance plans in Arizona in 2018. Both companies have until July 1st, though, to change their minds. U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions testified under oath today before the Senate Intelligence Committee. Sessions was questioned on a variety of topics regarding Russian interference in the recent U.S. elections, including whether or not he colluded with Russian officials to tamper with the vote, an accusation that Sessions called an appalling and detestable lie. Here now to talk about Sessions' testimony is Chuck Coughlin, president of High Ground Public Affairs Consultants. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us. General impression of General Sessions today?
I think he was earnest, very careful on some instances, but earnest and in his presentation of what he understood to be the facts and under intense political questioning.
This detestable lie, appalling, denied the collusion, did it come off as protesting too much? How did it come off?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think the bigger stories, like Bloomberg's out today saying there's 39 states that have been hacked. That's really the issue, is the security of the American election system. And so to throw that in a political context, to put it on one person is, I think, a bit despicable. We should be focusing as a country on the vulnerability of our election system per se. And
in his statement, he did emphasize that he had no involvement at all with the election, with Russia, I should say, involving the election. Here's quickly what he had to say.
Let me state this clearly, colleagues. I have never met with or had any conversation with any Russians or any foreign officials concerning any type of interference with any campaign or election in the United States.
Now, he did agree that he thinks there was interference in the election. So that's kind of a fine line you're walking there, right?
Yeah, I mean, every election we know is a mosaic of facts and a mosaic of things, but there's no question, according to the reports that are out there, as I said on the Bloomberg issue that they issued today, there was intervention. Now, did that determine the outcome of any particular race? But it does show the vulnerability of the electoral system. You could say that she lost, the presidential race was lost in essentially 3 states, Wisconsin, Ohio, or Michigan and Pennsylvania. You could throw sort of Ohio in there. And they were all very close margins raced. But also, she didn't go there the last few weeks of last few days of the campaign. And so everything's a mosaic. But there's no question, I think everybody understands, that our election system is under attack. And that's a coordinated effort on behalf of the Russian government.
Were you surprised that he said that he'd not received any detailed briefing on how Russia interfered?
Yeah, I think he was very careful about that because he's signed himself off, declared him conflict on this, and assigned it to his deputy attorney general, and so he's tried to wall himself off from it, but still have the appearance of running the Justice Department. And so there is some, as lawyers do, there's a fine line being drawn in several instances.
You mentioned walling off. I know that Democrats and critics have complained that he was stonewalling a lot of these questions. Valid criticism?
To the degree I thought it was curious on the executive privilege issue. I would say, based on attorneys that I've spoken to that I respect, that's probably been waived from the moment that the president was interviewed by Lester Holt or other folks. And he was preserving that, per se, for his client who had yet to invoke it. So I think in that instance, there was a bit of gamesmanship, I guess you would call it, but I guess it's a Senate hearing, so you have to expect that.
A little bit of that. Yeah, let's take a quick look here at General Sessions again, invoking executive privilege, kinda.
So, but just so I'm understanding, does that mean, are you claiming executive privilege here today, sir?
I'm not claiming executive privilege because that's the president's power, and I have no power to claim executive privilege.
What about conversation?
So he has no power to invoke executive privilege.
Right.
But the president does. And because the president does, he doesn't want to take away that power, so he's going to invoke his own. What?
Well, he's preserving it. I would argue he's trying to attempt to preserve it, as probably a lot of people that work for the president are trying to preserve the president from himself these days.
Yes, I would imagine that you do have to kind of watch what you're saying. But he also said he was following historic policies of the Department of Justice. And there was some concern there, like where are these written down? What are these policies? It seemed like there was a vague response there as well.
Yeah.
Historic policies?
Yeah. You know, my own comparison to it is, you know, working for an executive official. When I worked for Governor Symington back in the 90s, we had a lot of legal problems. There was a bankruptcy that went on. There was 26 federal felony counts that were filed at the time. But we maintained, Fife was great because we maintained serious message discipline throughout that whole exercise. We did, at the bankruptcy, we had 18 press conferences in 21 days about governing. You know, this week for the president was, I think, Workforce Development Week, and last week was Infrastructure Week. But nobody's talking about that.
No one's talking about it.
Because every day he starts off the discussion with a tweet attacking somebody, and he is yet to fully understand, I think, as the president, as the executive, as a governor is, when you say something, everything revolves around you. So his team is incapable of executing on messaging, and he cedes the field to everybody else.
I know that today General Sessions says he didn't violate his recusal, because he did recuse himself regarding the Russia investigation, but he did sign the letter firing the FBI director, Comey, and he says that it was his responsibility as Attorney General to be involved in the firing. How did he work out that math?
Well, I think in his defense, what he's saying is, I am still the head of the Justice Department, and I am acknowledging that my deputy has done this. And so it was a cover memo, but it did create an awkwardness that I think was brought up today. And as you point out right now, that, you know, had I been there, I'd probably say, yeah, just let him do his job.
But I mean, when is a recusal not a recusal?
When a lawyer doesn't want
when he doesn't want it to be a recusal. It's basically,
when he wants to give the appearance that he's still in charge. And so, you know, I've been party to some of these things before where attorneys have recused themselves and all of a sudden they're in the room.
Yeah. Yes.
And you're like, what are you doing here? And so it's an interesting thing, and probably one, I got to think, if I was giving him advice, or other lawyers that I would respect would give him advice, would say, just let him do his job. Just let the letter go. But this gets back to the question of, I think, the president asking, is Jeff Sessions in charge of the Justice Department? So he's trying to portray to the president that he is in charge of the Justice Department while he's recused himself from this matter.
So, what did we learn? I mean, Senator Warner, I think, said that his quote was, there's a troubling amount of smoke surrounding all of this, including General Sessions. First of all, do you believe that? And secondly, if you do, I mean, is this resonating with the public? Is that smoke being seen outside of Washington?
No, I don't think so. I think people eventually begin to tune this out. We just got out of the field the other day on a survey here in Arizona, and many of my clients were shocked by it. But the president remains the most popular Republican political official in Arizona amongst Republicans. And they're much more popular than Senator McCain, much more popular than the governor, much more popular than Senator Flake. And so they get shot. And so part of this is playing into that base mentality of Washington's a swamp and they're victimizing him, and he keeps playing that out. But in the meantime, the American people aren't being served. We're not being served by the issue at play here. As I said earlier, there were 39 states that are demonstrably hacked. Our election system is under attack, and nobody's talking about that. That's what we should be talking about as a country, yet we are in this partisan gamesmanship in Washington of one side trying to play a game of gotcha with the other side. And quite frankly, I don't see that. And what I'll wait to see, and I do trust the process of the special investigator to come out with the facts of what actually did happen in this cycle. And then we as a governing body, as the country, should look at that and say, okay, how do we defend against that? Now, is there complicitness in that from people that were in the Trump organization? Again, I'm going to look to that report to find that out. And I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that too, and perhaps a testimony that follows as well. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Ted.
You're watching Arizona Horizon. Coming up, we'll look at how the state fared in a national report on the well-being of children.
Growing up, my family had no real idea of where we came from. It's kind of like being in a fog because you feel like a piece of you is missing. What is the rest of my story? I saw African American Lives on PBS. I love the series, and there was a DNA kit that you could order to find out your African ancestry. And so I really got excited. My DNA results said that I was from Ghana. Wow. It just really opened me up to a whole new world, so I went ahead and started doing things. Now my mission is to write stories to have something to pass down to the next generation. It's important to know where you're from and to tell your children and teach them that. PBS helped me to go on a journey to discover who I was, and that journey will never end.
The Annie E. Casey Foundation's annual Kids Count report is out, and it shows Arizona ranked 46th overall in terms of the well-being of children. Here now to talk about the report and crunch a few numbers is Patty Arias with Children's Action Alliance. Good to see you again. Thanks for being here. What is the Annie E. Casey report?
The report takes into account a number of different factors that are all included in conditions for kids, and it takes a look at all of the states and compares them side by side, how well they did in certain markers, economic well-being, such as poverty rates, rates of uninsured children, kids who are attending preschool, that sort of thing, and then compiles all this data, takes a look at it and compares the states side by side to see where states fall within that grid, if you will. And
we ranked 46 out of 50. Last year we were 45.
Yeah.
Why the drop?
The drop could be a number of different factors. The way that the ranking works is that it also depends, sort of like a curve, so it depends on how well other states did.
There you go.
So for Arizona, we gained some in areas and we lost some in other areas.
Let's look at some of the losses first, and then we'll kind of look at some of the more encouraging aspects. As far as kids living in poverty, Arizona ranked 48th in this particular metric. 24% of kids live in high poverty areas. What's going on out there?
There are a lot of families that are just really, really struggling. And there are programs that provide a safety net that just really aren't available for them. So we're talking about programs such as TANF. We know that there are a significant number of families that aren't able to take advantage of that.
Is there a demographic breakdown on this, or is it just the raw numbers?
For this data, it is for this report, it takes a look at the raw data as far as the percentage of families. And then we do go into a more detailed report every other year in the state of Arizona that does break that down by county level.
Okay. Another metric here is the low enrollment of kids in early childhood education. Again, we ranked 46th for 3- and 4-year-olds enrolled. That's down, and it's not even close to the national average.
That's correct. We're looking at 63% of the kids who are within that age group that aren't available. They're not able to have access to quality preschool programs that can maybe teach them how to count, how to learn their alphabet, that sort of thing. They just don't have access to it, and that's why we have a significant number of kids that really do struggle throughout their educational careers.
And we should mention, that's study after study shows that getting these 3- and 4-year-olds, these preschoolers up and operational as far as just the process of learning, that's big. That's huge.
It is, yeah, it is. We're starting to see a trend in states across the country where The communities are getting involved with policymakers, and they're starting to really take a look at this within the business community as well. So there is a huge group of people from different interests who understand the value of educating young kids, and they are starting these pilot programs where kids are able to attend preschool, quality preschool, just to see how well they do. And we do know that educating them early does have an impact on them much later in life.
As far as access to health care, we ranked 44th, and that actually is an improvement.
It's a pretty good improvement.
Yeah.
In the prior report, there were 10% of Arizona children that did not have health insurance. Now, this data does look at 2015 data.
Right.
So we do know that in 2016, when Kids Care was approved by the governor and took effect in September of last year, that there are an additional 20,000 kids who now have health coverage that didn't have it before. Those are significant changes. Those are good figures. So from 10% to 8%, we will take that win.
Another win here is low birth weight babies. Arizona ranks 17th in the nation as far as low birth weight babies. That's not bad.
It's not too bad. It's not too bad. When you tie that into the number of teen births, which is actually going down, and that is a marker that we're seeing nationwide, where fewer and fewer teens are giving birth. That is something that is a positive. And
the teenage and child death rate, Arizona ranks 16th in the country. Again, it could do better. Still not that bad.
Not too bad. Again, those are the small wins, and we will take the small wins.
Yes.
Where we can get them.
How do we work on the small wins? How do you make the small wins, how do you spread those out a little more?
Well, a number of different things, and we did see this. I'm going to use the approval of Kids Care as an example of how getting the community involved, getting parents, getting policymakers involved, getting the business community to step up and say, we really need this. It takes sort of when you take a look at that, it takes a village concept. It takes a lot of different people, pediatricians, doctors. It takes everyone in the community, an overwhelming and very vocal and dedicated commitment to make things like this happen. We can make them happen. So with more commitment and focus on pushing for good public policy that benefits children, we can make an impact and hopefully bring these numbers up.
You optimistic?
I am going to be optimistic today.
All right, well, good enough. That's a good way to be. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
For years, attorney Tim Hogan of the Arizona Center for Law and the Public Interest has used the legal system to address inequities in state education funding, environmental concerns, and other issues. But after 26 years as the center's executive director and lead counsel, Hogan says he'll be stepping down at the end of this year. Joining us now is Tim Hogan. For how many times have you been on this program?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's incalculable. Why are you leaving? What's going on?
Well, it's just time. Sometimes you know when it's time. I've been at the center a long, long time. I want to try some new things. I think it's time for somebody else to take over and take the center and, provide some leadership and possibly do some great things in areas that we've started. When
you say try some new things, is it fly fishing, golfing, or what?
No, I'm not retiring, although some people have misconstrued this announcement. I'm going to continue to work on things and issues I care about, cases I care about. I'll continue to practice law. I'll continue to work with the center on important cases. You know, we filed a lawsuit a month and a half ago challenging the school finance system, the funding for capital funding. I'll continue to work on that and a number of other things.
I want to get to that in a second here, but how would you define the center and how would you define your role at the center?
Well, the center's mission is to really provide a voice to people who are unrepresented in our system or don't have much of a voice, particularly in the legislative process. So we tend to focus our efforts on vulnerable populations many times who don't get listened to at the legislature. And so we try and use the law to vindicate their rights, usually the Arizona Constitution or federal law. My role has been to provide some leadership, I think, in terms of the direction and areas that we've addressed over the years.
And that takes us now to some of the cases, including the one that was just filed. How does the center, how do you decide what to go after? What's the bottom line?
That's a difficult exercise for us because there are lots of things you could do. And we're a small organization, so that dictates some of what's possible for us. We have to look at cases that we can do efficiently with the resources we have, or bring in partners to help support our efforts in those kinds of cases. We have to think we can win. We're too small to take on cases that we don't think we're going to win.
That's interesting. There's no tilting at windmills here, is there?
No, not really. I mean, some people may characterize it that way, but the truth is we just can't afford to embark on a multi-year commitment, which a lawsuit is, when we don't think we've got a good chance of success.
Okay, let's talk about this recent suit, the capital expenditures for schools. Again, why'd you go for that one?
Well, we've come full circle. Maybe that leads into my stepping down. You know, that was the first lawsuit I filed when I came to the center in 1991. And we're very much back exactly where we were then, relying on a property tax base to fund capital expenditures for new schools, building renovations, equipment, things like that. That's unfair. It's inequitable. You know, the quality of those facilities and equipment shouldn't matter on where a kid lives, which is exactly what happens when you're funding through the property tax base. Mm-hmm. We had won that litigation, gotten a comprehensive law put in place by the legislature that over time they completely abandoned, such that we're now even worse off than we were in 1991 when it comes to funding capital for public schools.
It is interesting how that one seems to have come full circle as far as the center is concerned. Prop 123, that was a biggie as well.
Correct.
Why was that one taken on?
Well, that, again...
Inflation funding, I should say,
right, inflation
funding for education.
That's a good example. We did that case in partnership with another attorney and firm. That was a case that could be done efficiently because you were essentially dealing with a law that the voters had approved that said the legislature shall provide for inflation funding every year. They did that up to a point and then decided not to. And so we could do that case efficiently from a resource standpoint. It was a legal issue, and we managed to, at least as far as we got, the courts had agreed with us.
And now the governor has repeatedly referenced trial lawyers as those who are not looking for solutions on these areas. Respond to that.
Well, I don't know what that means. I've done trials, and I'm a lawyer, so I suppose that makes me a trial lawyer. But I don't think that's what he has in mind. I think he means it as a pejorative term somehow. You know, but as I've said, I've been called far worse than that. I mean, if trial lawyer is the best you can come up with, I'm doing all right, I think. I don't know. I think people... Sometimes elected officials just have kind of a visceral response to things and pull things out of a hat. I don't think it has any particular meaning here.
So, looking back 20 some odd years here, what is the biggest success What's the biggest regret?
Well, I think our biggest successes, we've had a lot of successes, not just me personally, but the center. Certainly in areas that I've worked on, education funding, we've generated billions of dollars for Arizona's public schools over that period of time. We litigated the mental health system throughout that period of time and successfully resolved that a few years ago. And one of my colleagues at the center worked very hard on that throughout almost the entire length of time that case went on. We've achieved some amazing successes on environmental issues, particularly Clean Air Act enforcement. We've been pretty much the only ones doing that ever since the Clean Air Act was signed by Richard Nixon way back when, and have had astounding success in that area. Those are all things that either I've contributed to or helped with that we're just amazingly proud of. Disappointments, there are a lot. I mean, I think the overriding disappointment anytime you do this kind of work is you couldn't do more. There are a lot of things that you want to do, but because of resource constraints, you can't.
Right.
That's the biggest disappointment.
All right. Well, we thank you for all the time you spent on the show. We'll get you on once or twice more. You never know. You're not let's leave until the end of the year. So
look forward to it.
All right. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Wednesday on Arizona Horizon, world-renowned physicist Lawrence Krauss has the latest science news, including new gravitational wave observations from 3 billion light years away. That's on the next Arizona Horizon. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thanks for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Once, a man went in search of the meaning of life. What he found would change the world forever. The Buddha. His life. His journey. His awakening.
Tonight at 7 on Arizona PBS. Explore new ideas and new worlds here on Arizona PBS, a community service of Arizona State University.
Throughout its history, Arizona PBS and volunteers have enjoyed a rich and rewarding partnership. Whether answering phones during our pledge campaigns, stuffing envelopes, or assisting with special events, volunteering is fun and provides excellent work experience, team building for a group, and a sense of community involvement and importance. If you would like to volunteer or if you have dropped off our mailing list, we encourage you to call the number on your screen or go online at azpbs.org/volunteer. Thank you.
Coming up next on Arizona PBS, Life and World.
At ASU, we believe the most important semester is the one that starts after you get your diploma, the one called Life. So we work hard to help our alumni thrive, teaching them the importance of not only achieving their goals, but exceeding them. With innovative programs that embrace hands-on learning that encourages real-world growth, our alumni know it can be the education of a lifetime, for a lifetime. For more information, asu.edu.
Coming soon to Arizona PBS.
Values of these Southwest treasures have fluctuated, but can you guess which ones?
When this came up, I could barely...
I could tell.
It's fantastic.
Woo!
Oh my gosh, yeah. I had no idea.
You're kidding me.
No, I'm not kidding.
Holy mackerel.
Find out